Hey guys.
He already went back.
Sorry, my son's getting into video games and he's only 2. He can't restrict his excitement about video games. I don't know when a child learns that. Probably someone at that point would say it's too young for screen time, but I don't know. Steven, aren't you of the philosophy it's never too early for video games?
Yeah, my mom always said just sit 5 feet back from the TV.
Yeah, well, you know, he's got like a little tablet. I mean, come on, learning how to play video games is like this American right, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we got a few more people here. We'll wait for a little bit more. While I'm waiting here, I'll show you this thing. I bought this at the library book sale. Look at this book. This book must be, well, I see it. I don't think you can see it because I think my background is stopping anyone from seeing it. Let's see. This is cool enough that I will, let's see if I can get rid of my background. Okay. Look at the size of this cat's book. This cat's book is like, it must be about 3 feet tall. It's almost as, well, it goes up to the head of my child. So it's a pretty tall book. It's all about cats. Someone must really love cats to have made a book. And there must be some incredibly bad business person out there who said, yeah, I think there's a market for 3 foot tall cat books. Because who doesn't want a book that's 3 feet tall? That's the only book I own that's that big. I guess there's always a market for something. Okay, we'll wait here for about another minute. You're tired? Sorry, I'm going to look for one thing here before we start. Okay, I think we've got everyone. Okay, so I found my microphone, so that's good. Hopefully everyone is hearing me well, and the lack of reply is not like last week's experience, which we're going to start off class today by. So unfortunately, the video, if anyone's watched the class video, it did stop at the point, unfortunately, where people had last heard me. And so then I thought about making the video, but then unfortunately what happens then is that you have no way of... Yes, and then I have no way of answering any questions that come up. So I just thought I'm going to take the class time today to start off by covering that. And then we'll get into the lecture. But before I do that, I'm going to send out tonight an email that outlines the promise I had made earlier to everyone. So let me, oh, thank you, Pierce, for that hug. Yeah, hug. Okay. Can everyone see my like my notes screen right now? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So there was the thing that's not in our syllabus, but I had added. Sorry. Apples. It's a pineapple. It's not an apple. It's a pineapple. Hey, Bernice, you're just in time. I was just going to start talking about the extra credit that I talked about earlier.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, no worries. Okay, let's go back to this. So, back in the beginning of the semester, I don't know, it might have been September or something like that. I had talked about this thing that's not part of our syllabus, but is a thing that's I think is actually pretty useful. And for those of you who have me for the Tuesday class, you would know that we're using it quite extensively. But in my Thursday class for us for intermediate macro, we don't really use it that much. Well, we don't use it at all, pretty much. But I do want to expose you to it, and I want to give you an incentive to do it. So I'm a good economist. And being a good economist, what I know is that to get people to do what you want them to do, you need to properly incentivize them, right? There's two ways I can get you to do things, right? There's one where I can just force you to do it, and there's one where I can make it in your best interest to do it. And that's what we have with Bloomberg market concepts. So again, if you went to that if you haven't done it yet, this would be the website portal.bloombergforeducation.com. And I have a note that I've written to everyone. It's a document that outlines how to sign up for it. Pierce, I'm sorry, I don't know how to play that game. Brother knows how to play though. Yeah, I'll try to help you. Okay. So I did make a like a Word doc that kind of outlines the instructions, but in Bloomberg, portal.bloombergforeducation.com, if you sign up for it and you sign in for our class code being, sorry, again. Our class, sorry, it's not this. 6 of you have signed up for it so far, but our class code here is right here. I'll leave this up for a little bit here. So you should write this down. This will also be in the Word document, but write it down right now too, just in case. LSFDR. Hey. Okay. LSFDR GJ8HB. Because what you would do is you would go to that portal.bloombergforeducation.com website. I'll wait just a little bit more here. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Pierce. And what you would do is, I'm going to log out here. That's me. On the website portal.bloombergforeducation.com, when you first go to that site, you would hit sign up and you would say that you're a learner. And the most important thing I can say here is you need to put in your hawaii.edu email address because that's the only way I will recognize you. So, I don't know that, Bernice is surferchick808@hotmail.com, right? There's no way I would know that. Bernice, do you even surf?
No, I don't.
See, exactly. So, but what would be even funnier is what if she had picked that, right? And I did know now that she doesn't surf. There'd be no way I would know she would pick that because I'd be like, Bernice doesn't surf. That can't be her. But maybe she did in the 7th grade, or maybe her sister created the account for her and she likes, right? There's no way I would know. So you need to sign up for this with your @hawaii.edu email address. Yes, Pierce. Oh, okay. So first name, last name, put in your hawaii.edu email address, make up a password, and confirm that you're not a robot. Once you do that, then it's going to ask you for a class code. I already told you what the class code is. And when that shows up for classes, our class here. Oh, look at that. One of you has already been smart enough to sign up for it while we're talking. Then you're going to see the Bloomberg Market Concepts tabs here. Now, there's a lot of tabs here, but there's actually only 4 that you really truly need to do, but there's actually no disincentive to just getting them all done. I say that like it's easy, but the cool thing is that if you do these first 4, economic indicators, currencies, fixed income, and equities, if you do those first 4, doesn't matter what your score is, if you do those first 4, you're going to get Bloomberg Market certified, and it's going to tell me that you're certified. And here's the best part, is that so you do the first 4 to earn the Bloomberg Market Concept certificate. And if almost everyone, so I'm going to say almost all, so I'm going to allow up to 1 individual to like potentially screw over the class. Let's just say, we've got someone who never shows up to any lectures, totally unengaged, has no plan to do this, and that's their choice. Okay, well, then I guess that's their choice, and there's nothing much I can do. But if at least all but one of you do this, you do those first 4 to earn that Bloomberg Market certificate, then if all but one, then there are 2 things that you're basically going to get. Then everyone in this class will be guaranteed to earn a B+ at a minimum. So the lowest possible grade that you could earn in this class then would be a B+. That would mean that if all but one of you then at least do this, that the lowest grade I would issue at the end of the semester would be a B+. Number 2. For exam 2, so I tried to work through, I'm trying to figure out what's the thing that works out the best for everyone. By that I mean, what? Mommy's gonna be home soon. So for exam 2, here's what you would have as, here's what would emerge from that. So unfortunately, just because the exams count for so much, there has to be something. I have to put in something. Otherwise, the existing things would count for too much, which would then potentially be bad if you had like a low score. Even if you missed a few homeworks, then everything would be really bad. So here's what I've said. Here's how I've designed it. So the first thing I'm going to say here is that if everyone did all these first 4 things, and everyone's then guaranteed the lowest possible score you could get is a B+, that would mean you could just do nothing, right? You could just risk it all. You could even choose to not even do exam 2, and you would get a B+. right? So that would be the lowest score I'm giving anyone. And it gives you an opportunity, and I say it again, it gives you an opportunity to say, I've got too much going on here. I don't even want to take exam 2. I'm okay with the B+. And quite honestly, if you didn't do exam 2 and you got a pretty low score on exam 1, you would just end up with a B+. And if you're totally cool with that, then you're totally cool with it. But you would need to look at your exam 1 score. And if you like your score, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replicate it for exam 2, meaning I'm just going to copy the exact same score for 1 and put it down as 2. That would mean you don't have to take exam 2. I'm just going to put down the exam 1 score. Or you can take exam 2 and maybe do better. And I will actually only, if you do worse than exam 1, I will just copy over your exam 1 score. So I'm sorry it sounds so complicated, but it actually is the thing that actually works fairest for everyone. Because if I say that no one has to take exam 2 because they do this, then your exam 1 score will count for far more than anyone thought it should have counted for. Or the homeworks will count for more. But this is probably and I'll even take a screenshot of this to post this under announcements. But this is, I think the fairest way, and although it sounds complicated, I think it's perhaps the easiest way to underscore how important I think it is. Now, unfortunately, none of this might matter because maybe up to two people don't do it. If that ends up being the case, I will then come up with an alternative. The alternative will be significant extra credit that's applied to your exam 2 that makes it worth your while. I say that because to earn this certificate is going to take, my estimate would be about 7 to 10 hours to do this certificate. So it's not like insignificant time. I mean, you are obviously earning something that will help your resume and help you out when you get onto the job market. But it's obviously 7 to 10 hours. It's at least a full day of doing it. So that was what I thought was, I guess, the fairest way to do it. Is everyone kind of clear with what this looks like? Or what this extra credit opportunity sounds like? Someone should say something, otherwise I'm going to think that no one can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Does that sound clear to everyone? Yes? Yes?
Is everyone close to finishing?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, there's we don't have, what I will do is I will send an email. I don't think anyone's going to object to me doing this because it actually does benefit you all. I'm going to send an email with everyone's email address. That way, if anyone is forgetting to do it, you can amongst yourselves encourage each other to do it. But again, let me just also throw this out there too, and I know this is the case right now. So I'm saying all but one do it, and we'll have this exist. I know that there's 2 people though who have like not done much, if anything, at all this semester. Okay, well, if that's the case, right? If we have a second person who like doesn't even attend the lectures, doesn't do anything, didn't do the homeworks, obviously I'm not going to count that person. I'm talking about like if Steven and Jerry and Bernice all decide not to do it, well then, right, then we wouldn't do it this way. But it's not like you would have lost, you won't lose everything, because then I'll just give you significant extra credit that will basically, for yourself individually, probably get pretty close to replicating this. And I'll be able to tell everyone by December 1st, what this looks like then. Does that sound pretty clear? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'll include this screenshot in the Google Doc that kind of outlines this. This is also being recorded, so you can watch this again. And as the final thing I'll say is that if you have any problems at all in how to sign up for this or anything like that, we've got one of our resident experts who can help us, who's paid to help us, so he should. Cody, crex at hawaii.edu. So if you have any problems signing up for anything, how to carry out anything, like how to, even just technical issues. Let's say you actually want to use the Bloomberg terminals, which I'm not requiring you to do, but let's say that you really want to use the terminals, then this would be your chance to do it. Okay, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Sorry, Angelia, I just announced the extra credit, but you'll be able to catch it up by watching just the first few minutes of the recording when I post it tonight. Actually, you know what? Let me just take it. I'm sure no one's going to object to me strongly doing it. Let me just repeat it again. Big extra credit, big extra credit, big extra credit. Hi, Pierce. Yes, of course I will give you a hug. I will give you a hug. Okay, I'm reading this for class right now. Okay, so in this extra credit, Angelia, but it's also open obviously to everyone, you're going to go to this website, portal.bloombergforeducation.com. And what you're going to do is you're going to sign up for it. And in signing up for it, you're going to go through a process of signing up for it. We've got 7 people that have signed up for it now. And Angelia, you're not one of them, so this is going to be good. So you look at this class, we're getting rid of one weak link here. Portal.bloombergforeducation.com. This is the class code. So I'll leave this here for a second again. Ice cream. I'm not eating ice cream right now. Yes. Angela, you got this class code? I'll hope so. LSFD RG J8 HB. Okay, so we've got 7 of you. Yep. You got it?
I got it.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. So again, what I'm asking everyone in the class to do, at least all but one to do, is these first 4 economic indicators: currencies, fixed income, and equities. Cover these 4 modules. My best estimate would be that it's going to require at a minimum 7 hours of your time to do it. So happy Thanksgiving, right? Or have a good weekend. By November 30th, if at least all but one of you in this class have done these 4, you'll have done 2 things. You'll have earned for yourself the Bloomberg Market Concepts certificate, which will help you in the job market. It will help you as a place to post things for your resume. But also, it'll create this extra credit by November 30th, 11:59 p.m. If all but one at least do this, then no one in this class will get a grade lower than a B+. That would mean you can basically check out. You can do nothing at all after November 30th. You can completely check out, and you will know that no matter what bad things happen, you will get a B+ in this course. And then let's say that that's not good enough for you, right? Angelia's got a strict father who will not accept her to bring home a B+. Then you'll take exam 2. And if she decides to do exam 2, if someone decides to do exam 2, then well, I'll do one of 2 things. Either I will take your exam 1 score and simply copy it over for your exam 2 score. And so if you did well on exam 1, you'll just know that I'm going to copy it over. Or take exam 2, and if you take exam 2 and you do better than your first exam, I will count that score. And basically, I want to give a proper incentive for people who really do want to do well and like know that they can now get a 95% on exam 2. I still want to give that incentive there for those who want to do that, but I also want to properly incentivize those of you who have a lot of stuff going on in this first week of December. And I think that kind of strikes a nice balance between those two. Okay. And I will say this too, as informally, although I'm not going to write it down, what I'll say informally is that what it does is it also, I would probably think long and hard before I would issue the B+. If you've been coming to class every week, you put forth a good effort on everything, and you did what you were supposed to do, I probably would not give you that low grade of a B. Not that it's a low grade, but I probably would not just give you the B+. B+ would really be reserved for the individual who doesn't do exam 2, doesn't do the remaining homeworks, did all right on the first exam, and obviously that we did this Bloomberg market concepts, and more or less came to class most of the times. Does that sound good for everyone? Sound fair? Sound transparent?
Sounds good.
Good. Okay, perfect. Angelia, would your parents let you bring home a B+? Would they be okay with it? I'm going to assume yes. Or maybe no. Yeah, okay. They would, okay. Sounds good. Okay, let me go into the, now, again, hope and pray and cross your fingers that at least no more than one person lets us down in the class. But again, if it happens, I'll still properly incentivize everyone enough. Okay. Let me go back to this. And let me go back to this. And Chance, correct me if I'm wrong. In that class last week, it was about like slide 11 or slide 12 where you didn't hear me anymore. Is that right?
Not sure.
Why don't I? Okay, I think that's about right. So let me pick it up with here. And again, I'm recording this, so you'll be able, I'll make sure that you can kind of merge the two videos, and it should provide a seamless lecture. That's my idea. Okay, so the point of last week's lecture was this idea that the economy fluctuates over time. How do we understand how that fluctuation occurs over time? And what we had done here was we had talked about things in the preceding slides about like, well, how do you measure it? Like what statistics would we use to measure it? And that there's this difference between the long run and the short run, with that difference being what's the time frame for how prices, how quickly do they adjust? The long run is long because prices all adjust in that time period. The short run is short because in the short run, some prices are sticky. By sticky, we mean that the prices are a bit inflexible to changing. So that'd be like things like wages. So for instance, I'm a unionized employee. My wages only can adjust once every, my wage actually adjusts once a year, but even that adjustment is determined only when my union contract is renegotiated, which is every 4 years. So meaning, right, even though my wage does change, it's already changing by a predicted amount. If all of a sudden inflation shoots up to, let's say, 50%, my union contract says I only get a 1% raise. Like, dude, I'm totally fucked. Like, I'm not going to get a 50% raise until the next time there's a union contract to be negotiated and that's entered into it. So what does that mean? It means that my wage for the most part is relatively sticky. Right, like, oh, I got this like catalog, for instance, from LL Bean, and it says in the catalog from LL Bean that all the prices are good until like December 24th, 2020. Okay, well, that's a sticky price, right? Meaning LL Bean really can't adjust the price until December 4th of 2020, because I could always look at that catalog and say, this is the price in the catalog, give me that price. Now we know that the internet era has really changed things because, right, like prices change on Amazon all the time. You know, they can change prices at Target really fast because they just have to change the number in the computer really fast. But there are a number of things where prices are sticky, at least in the short run. There's contracts for construction. There's like as most of you know in this class, I bought a house, and right, I already have a roofer coming to my house in a few weeks, and right, we've already signed a contract to have the roof replaced. Well, right, I'm kind of now fixed to that price, you know, one way or the other. Okay, with that said, what then happens? The way that this all becomes different. Really? You're gonna put it right there? Okay, let me go back here. Is that in the short run, again, SR, we're saying prices are fixed. And in the long run, prices are flexible. Now, what we're saying here is that now we're going to graph out what the entire economy looks like. And on the x-axis is going to be real GDP, which we know is just another way of saying Y, which is just our total output. And here, on the y-axis, we're going to put the price level, however we're measuring it. Anyone want to ask any question right now? This would be your time. If you don't understand the graph I'm drawing out here yet. And we're going to have a downward sloping curve here. That's going to stand for aggregate demand. Which is simply the components in the economy. C plus I plus G plus NX. Those are all our components in the GDP. Now, this aggregate demand curve, which is summarized as AD, so you can see here in some of these slides here, it's referred to as AD. Aggregate demand curve does not change whether we're talking about the short run or the long run. It's always the same. It's downward sloping with respect to price. Now, you want some help, Pierce? Here, bring it here. I'll help you. Sorry, I need to get a hot dog bun out of a pot that kids play with. Oh, you really got that in there. Did your brother do that? Did Truman do that? Sorry, class, 1 second here. I got it. There we go. Yep, you're welcome. Again, for those of you who don't like the childhood banter, my other son will be done with piano here in about 10 minutes. And if you don't like it, I don't know, find a different professor. I'm being so cocky. Okay. Now, what's different here then is short run aggregate supply versus long run aggregate supply. So what I'm saying here is that the aggregate supply curve changes based on whether we're talking about the short run or the long run. If it's the short run, it's upwards. Let's make it kind of similar to how the book has it. Let me make it like how the book has it. Let me stick with how the book has it. The book does a slightly different way of doing it, which isn't like totally inaccurate, but it's not exactly the way I would do it. Bring it here, Pierce, and I will help you. Bring it here. Bring it here. Well, it clearly should not be in there because you got it stuck in there. Okay. Sorry, let me make this easier here. Let me start with the long run. In the long run, the curve is completely vertical. And the reason why it's completely vertical is because it intersects the x-axis at the basically the productive capabilities of the economy. If you remember back to the second week in class, we drew out those production possibility frontiers where we had two goods that an economy could produce, and we just said how much can they produce at a time. And there was some kind of maximum amount they could produce given the number of people they had and all these other things. That's what that Y star is. It's the natural GDP. It's the also generates for us a natural rate of unemployment, but it's basically the maximum productive capabilities of the economy. Okay, so in this, you'll notice that the price level can be anything, meaning the price is completely flexible, as is described in the long run. Now, I'm gonna go through these slides here, but I just want to stick with. And I'm not a big fan of how they. Yeah, I'll do it. That's fine. Now, the book writes this as a horizontal curve that's fixed at a certain price, which would be relevant because we're saying here in the short run, prices are fixed, right? That's what we're saying is red. Long run is what we're referring to as yellow. If you start looking around on the internet, you might see it look like this instead. You might see that the short run aggregate supply curve is kind of like upward sloping. It's the same thing. It's just different people do different things. I was taught to make it somewhat flexible. Even in the short run, prices can change a little bit, right? Like, well, for instance, I'm a state employee. The governor is saying that he's going to reduce my wages by 10%, right? And yeah, it's causing like a whole bunch of like, debate and everyone's grumpy about it. But even my fairly inflexible wage, I mean, the governor can change it. It's in his legal authority to change it. So there's no such thing as an absolutely fixed price. So I like to make it more realistic and have mine upward sloping. The book, and strictly theoretically speaking, we would make it horizontal at that price. You okay, Piercy? Is this clear? Is this graph at least clear for everyone so far? This top graph right here. This graph. Is it clear for everyone? If it's not, you should say something now. Or someone should say something so I know that everyone can still hear me.
It's clear for me.
Okay, that's good. Does anyone want to say, I have no idea what you are talking about, Shiden? If you want to say that, this is your time to say it too. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to look at three situations. That we could have a situation where the economy is basically in the long run already. let's just call this scenario number one. In scenario number one, the short run scenario is the same as the long run scenario. So you could basically just say in the short run, we're actually operating optimally, and there's not really going to be any changes in the economy. In situation number two, okay, we could be at a situation where the short run aggregate supply curve is below that long run equilibrium point. And in situation number three, we could have it where it's above it. The whole point of this topic, as this topic identified, it's called economic fluctuations. Well, this is exactly right. What I'm kind of essentially saying here is that in the long run, everything is going to scenario number one. But it's a process, right? And the way that we see that process actually is that we see it as a business cycle. That over time, if we were to look at the overall output, that the change in real GDP on the whole over time might be about 2% a year. But we know that the economy doesn't always grow by 2% a year. Sometimes it goes slower than that. Sometimes it goes faster than that. Sometimes it shrinks. So what we know is that there's a business cycle. You have the whole book of dogs, Pierce. We know that there's a business cycle where we have peaks again, and we have troughs, and we have periods of time where the economy is expanding. And we have periods of time where the economy is contracting. Right? Like February of 2020, we were basically at a peak. The contraction, we're still in that period right now where the economy is contracting. We don't know when the general estimate here is that in terms of expansion here in Hawaii, for instance, the numbers I've seen is that this won't happen until like 2024 or 2025. So we see this general movement of scenarios 2 and 3 to scenario 1. We see that in the progress of this business cycle where the economy does well, then it doesn't do well, does well, and then doesn't do well. So this, what John Maynard Keynes did, or what we call Keynesian Macroeconomics, what he did in the 1930s was all a way of understanding why economies fluctuate. And he generated this aggregate demand scenario to help understand why economies fluctuate over time. So what I did then for the remaining time here with this here is I wanted to understand, I'm going to erase this because you probably would not have heard this. Oh yeah, because I do remember this. I don't remember who it was. Bernie, I don't know if it was you or maybe it was you, Chance. Someone had talked about, remember Pfizer, right, when we were talking about the vaccine? Remember that? Or maybe I'm just forgetting things. So I'm just erasing what I had done last week. Some might see this and be like, oh, depressed, but you know what? I'm going to be okay. By the way, if you haven't signed up for classes yet, I'm teaching Econ 396 next semester. It's a good way to get your WI done. Pretty easy class. Econ 396. That's a little bit of marketing for you there. Okay, so let's go back to this here. So here's our downward sloping aggregate demand curve. It's always downward sloping, doesn't matter short run or long run. Aggregate demand is downward sloping. And one thing that we can see here is that the aggregate demand curve can shift. So we know movements along the curve are pretty easy to understand because that's just going to be if the price level falls, that real GDP rises. It's an inverse relationship, just like a demand curve. So when you see that D there, it's operating just like a demand curve. But shifting the curve occurs for a different reason other than changing the price. And the primary reason why the aggregate demand curve would shift would be because of a shock to the economy. So one of those would be, right, once we get this vaccine, the vaccine is probably going to shift out the aggregate demand curve. Because once we have a vaccine, people are going to buy airline flights. They're going to, go out and eat. Do a number of different things that, they're not doing now when people are just sitting at home. So once we get this vaccine, we're going to start to see a lot more spending. I mean, dude, I can't even tell you the last time I wore a button-down shirt. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. Don't worry, I'm not like letting myself go here or anything. Not that you're worried about it, but I'm not letting myself go. It's just good thing Aloha shirts are always in style, I guess. I don't have to buy new style clothes. But once we resolve this and we get a vaccine, it's going to shift the aggregate demand curve out. Alternatively, one way to understand what happened in February was that when we said COVID-19 is infecting the United States, it shifted in the aggregate demand curve. It was a negative shock. Which, if I now add other colors here, okay. So in January of 2020, we were at number one, let's say. Number one represented being in both the short run and long run equilibrium, and this was our relevant level of GDP. So we were right here. Then COVID-19 is announced, causing a shift of the aggregate demand curve from AD to AD prime. Now, what that does for us is that it immediately then changes the short run equilibrium. Oh, shit. Go back here, sorry. Okay. Moves us from number 1 to number 2. And that at number 2, the price is still the same, as it should be, because prices are, again, fixed more or less in the short run. But that the level of real GDP is lower. How do I know it's lower? I apologize to everyone in the class. But if you complain, you're stopping my child from learning to clap his hands when he's happy. So my level of real GDP is now falling. Does everyone see this? If you don't see this, this again is your time to say, I don't see what you're doing, Shiding. Or it's also your time to say, I totally understand what you're doing, Shiding. But someone should say something here. That way I'll know that everyone still can hear me and see me.
Get it?
Good, okay. So the economy is moving from 1 to 2 in the short run, which is kind of where we are right now, actually, to be honest. And really what's concerning to me as an economist, uh-oh, go get it. You want me to go get it? Oh. Sorry, class. I have to go get this here. Pick up it. So one of the problems that we have here right now in this economy today is that we face a choice, and the choices we've made so far are not good. So if we do nothing, then very slowly if we do nothing, we're going to very slowly move from 2 to 3. So 2 to 3 if we do nothing, then y is lower, right? And if the y is lower, then we know that that places downward pressure on prices. Primarily because there's not a lot of business going on. So for instance, I'm getting this like roof replaced. Dude, there's not a lot of people out there right now putting new roofs on their house because people don't have the money to do it, right? So like, they're like, we'll come to your house tomorrow to put the roof on. We'll give you this, like I got like a Yelp discount. I don't even go on Yelp. Right. So they obviously want the business and they want things to go. They want this transaction to go through, and I'll do it if the price is cheap enough, right? So And that same kind of thing is going to happen in a lot of different types of transactions, right? Where the price is going to go. There's just, if I'm looking for a job right now, I'm not going to be able to get whatever wage I want because there's a lot of people that are unemployed right now. It goes on. If nothing's happening, the economy is just slowly slowing down. And as it slows down, the prices are lower and the wages are lower. Now, you might think that's a good thing, but the problem, as we see with prices being slow to move, is that it doesn't move that fast. And so very, very slowly, prices fall. But now remember that at number 2, unemployment is higher. And that real GDP is lower. So we're basically not operating optimally. And that slow movement from number 2 to number 3 is going to take 18 to 24 months at least. So we'll only slowly recover if we do nothing at all. Now, the alternative is that you can do something. And what you can do is that if you do something about it, let's make this color. If you do something, you can act to. Okay, now this is supposed to be like kind of like, think of this line I'm drawing right now as being exactly on top of the AD curve. I want to draw it like separate from it so that you can kind of see that I shifted it out the other way. But think of this kind of squiggly, I don't know what you would call that, aqua green line. Think of it as being exactly on top of the AD curve. Okay, just think of them as superimposed on each other. You can do something about it. And that doing something about it represents a shift from AD prime to AD double prime. With the goal being to return the economy to normal. And the way that you do that is you do it in one of two ways. You either do it with expansionary monetary policy, which is what we tried to do in March. That means you basically increase the money supply in an attempt to lower the interest rate, in an attempt to increase consumption and increase investment. Dude, it's totally been working in that sense, right? So in March, the Federal Reserve dramatically increased the money supply. And by dramatically increasing the money supply, they lowered interest rates. They lowered interest rates enough that I said, dude, I should buy a house right now, right? And I bought a house in October, right? So that would mean I went up. I went up because I bought a house. And I bought a house because the interest rates were lower. And there's now a lot of incentive to saving money. So that's expansionary monetary policy, just even on my own personal level, but we could imagine anyone that wants to start a business right now could probably get pretty easy access to borrowing money. Or we can engage in expansionary fiscal policy. So see here, I increased C and I. Those are two components of the GDP, so that's why it's kind of shifting out here. Because now the I's and the C's are bigger than they were before. Under expansionary fiscal policy, basically the government can spend more or it can tax less. Now, this is where we're getting into the problem, because the last thing the government ever did was back in April when we all got that incentive payment, right? When we all got that like $1,200 or whatever. If you had a family, you got more. So in my case, for my family, I got $3,300. Dude, that money's been long ago spent. I mean, I spent it a long time ago. I didn't save it. I spent it. I did what I was supposed to, I guess, in that sense. But the government spending money shifts the economy out. So the problem that we've got going on right now, and the thing that economists are truly, truly worried about, is that basically we've reached the limits of what expansionary monetary policy can do. Basically, the interest rate is zero right now for the most part. And again, my mortgage, 2.875%, like, there's not a lot of money being made at 2.875%. Banks don't even face a lot of incentive to lending out money that cheaply. So the banking system has basically done all it can. Everything now has to come from the president and Congress. And that's obviously where we're having the problem now, is because the economy needs a political body to now make a decision. And if nothing gets done until January, that kind of sort of sucks. So much so that the thing I saw today. Can everyone confirm? Can you see my my Chrome screen right now? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Actually,
Is that even Alan Greenspan, who's the former Federal Reserve chairman, looks pretty grumpy here, dude. And when he was my boss back when I worked at the Federal Reserve, he looked just as old back then as he does now. So, so he's obviously saying things are pretty bad here. Why is he saying they're pretty bad? Is because he's basically saying, now this guy is like Republican. This guy is like right of the Kaiser Republican. He's like super, super duper duper, super duper right. Like he's as conservative. He's a, Alan Greenspan believes in like Rand, believes in Ayn Rand, which is this like philosopher who, is just, this is very, very Republican, I guess is the nicest way to say it. So it's not like he is going to be any good friend to Joe Biden or the Democrats. He will listen to everyone. He's not like that ideological, but he will listen to everyone. But even him, he's kind of saying here is that this is very, very bad right now. And the government needs to do something. And so this is even him saying today that we need to do something more than just say that we have these vaccines. We need to actually stimulate the economy. And that's what he's kind of saying here is that, so here, just to kind of quote here, right, the economy, you have to have a vaccine in order for the economy even to have the potential to recover. But even then, it's going to take a while for it to recover. And then the last 4 paragraphs are really why I brought this, added this article here, is that basically everything we had going on right now was all dependent on the CARES Act. And that was passed back in like March. And we've had nothing done since then. All that money's been spent. Everything is running out. And so now what's the government going to do? Because basically the central bank has done all it can, which means now you face a situation where, potentially speaking, it's going to look really screwed up here, but basically you've created a situation where okay, so this is before the virus. And then you had the virus happening. So that moved us from 1 to 2. And then basically Congress did some things and it kind of like stimulated the economy. It didn't totally stimulate it. So that meant it moved us to 3. So we went from 1 to 2 to 3, and the 2 happened because we passed like the CARES Act and other things like that. Sorry, 2 to 3, that was like the CARES Act. And what we're saying now is that if the CARES Act, if we do nothing now, then we go back to 2. So we go from 1 to 2 to 3, back to 2. When you quite simply could say, we've done a lot of stuff, we got us all the way to 3. Now, let's, instead of doing nothing, let's do CARES Act 2. And what that does is that instead of going to 2, it gets us to 4. Where 4 is basically where 1 is. Was that clear to everyone about what that critique is? That's even just coming out today. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I should remember. I want to remind everyone. Just a reminder: we will not be having Thanksgiving together. We do not have class on Thanksgiving. I hope none of you thought that we would, but we will not. I'm not doing turkey this year. I don't know. It's just Jerry. Are you doing turkey at your house?
No, I'm not.
What are you gonna do?
I think like pork.
Oh, I'm gonna go get pizza. I think I'm gonna get like a Pizza Hut, like one of those big dinner boxes. You know, the kind that comes with the pasta and the wings and the breadsticks. You know, like an Italian, a sad Italian Thanksgiving. I don't know. Or maybe, you know what I should do? Maybe I should go to Taco Bell and get one of those big, like, party boxes. You know, the one kind of have like the 15 tacos in it or something. What do you think, Jerry? Pizza or tacos? Dictate
Tacos.
to me. You think, okay, tacos? Okay. Soft or hard? Soft tacos or hard
Soft.
tacos?
Soft
Tacos,
taco.
good choice. Yeah, okay. What should I get as my extra, quesadillas or something on the grilled menu? You know, I have those like grilled, like those like Chipotle grilled things, like chicken Chipotle things, or should I just get the quesadillas?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't been to Taco Bell in so long.
Really?
Yeah, it's been
You
like
are
years.
totally. Why have you gone upscale, or you just don't do that anymore?
I like make tacos, like homemade tacos.
You make. Okay, well, okay, class. I'm gonna change my schedule. I'm gonna show up to Jerry's house on Thanksgiving with my family, and we're gonna have Thanksgiving at your house, dude. Where do you live, dude? What side of the island do you live on?
Around Wahiwa?
I'm not going that far. I'll just go to Taco Bell. Okay. Well, I was gonna go to your house, but I'm not. Okay. I'm gonna take my class upstairs here. My wife is home. Yeah, mommy's home. Okay. I'm gonna go upstairs. You all good, fun? Yeah. Okay. Where's our other son? Doesn't want to come inside. Oh. Okay, class, just wait. My reason for not doing turkey is we don't eat turkey any other time of the year. And my critique was, you know, we're not gonna, I don't want to be stuck with leftovers. Chance, are you doing anything big for Thanksgiving?
My family has a timeshare, so I'm just gonna go there.
Oh, that sounds very exciting, I guess. Are you gonna make turkey?
No, I don't like turkey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I liked it as a kid, but I don't know. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
go
I
with
just
pizza.
never been a big
Okay.
fan.
You're gonna what?
I just never been a big fan of like any Thanksgiving food. Maybe the pumpkin pie, but that's it.
I was gonna say there's the pumpkin pie, right? Or you could do apple pie if you didn't want to do that. Stuffing's pretty good, but it's not very healthy for you. So I think I'm just gonna stick with this pizza option. Okay. Is everyone clear with me so far, like what the critique is, and pretty clear about how fluctuations kind of are being explained in the economy through this aggregate demand curve, short run aggregate supply, long run aggregate supply curve? Is this clear for everyone? If it's not, you should say something.
So far,
The reason, or go on, sorry.
so far it's clear, but I just don't understand it enough to make an intelligent comment on it.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I can understand that. Let me do this before we do a break. This might be helpful for everyone. So what if I drew something like this? Actually, let's make this really big. Why am I always trying so small? So here's my question for everyone. So here's my question. Did something good happen in this economy? Let's just say we were at number 1. Did something good happen in this economy, or did something bad happen in this economy?
Would we say good?
Yep, something good happened in this economy. The way we would know something good happened in this economy is that the components of AD are C, I, G, and NX. And now, one of those components, 2 of those components, 3 of those components, or maybe even all 4 of those components are now higher, right? So under this one, let's just say all of them are higher. Right? So all 4 of them are higher. Something fantastic happened, right? We don't know what it is, doesn't even matter what it is. So something good happened. Now, in the short run, I have to move along the short run aggregate supply curve. So that would mean I'm going to go from 1 to 2. Cody, sound good so far?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the level of GDP that's associated with level 2 is higher. Now, my question for you, Cody, is what happens when y prime is greater than y? What happens to prices when y prime is greater than y? Is there upward pressure on prices, or is there downward pressure on prices? Cody, what do you think? Yeah.
I think there are upward pressures.
Exactly. This would be what the economy was like, towards the end of any expansionary period. employees can say, dude, there's not a lot of empty free workers available right now, so totally raise my wage, or I'm not going to come to work, right? There's all this, finding a roofer. I don't know what it was like finding a roofer a year ago, but let's just guess it was harder, right? Because they all had jobs to do, and you couldn't get in, right? They're not going to give you the Yelp discount because they got lots of orders, waiting. So there's all this upward pressure on prices, which would mean if nothing happens, if no one does anything about this, whatever this, let's just say that the reason why AD to AD prime shifted out was because of some external event. Let's just say some big comet from the outside world fell and it was filled with gold. So all of a sudden everyone had all this free money that just came out of the sky. Okay. I know it sounds crazy, but let's just say whatever it was a really good thing and it just happened to everyone. Or let's make it a little bit more realistic. Back in 1999, and throughout the late 90s, basically, is when the internet really started to take hold. And it basically helped all aspects of the economy become more efficient. And it shifted the AD curve out. Now, if you do nothing, then there's upward pressure on prices. And then over the long run, we move slowly but surely to number 3. But now here's the big thing. Compare scenario 1 to scenario number 3. What is different about scenario number 1 and scenario number 3? Cody, what's the Cody? Yep, go on.
There's a surplus of there's a surplus of supply because prices are high, and that's discouraging people from spending.
Well, but is there, because now we're on the LRAS curve, right? So what's really the difference between number 1 and number 3 in the long run? The Y is the same. Nothing is different about the Y. But what is higher? You said it when you were in your response.
The aggregate supply is higher. The surplus.
The prices are higher, right? The prices that are associated with that on the AD curve, right? The price used to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's way up here. Meaning, if you do nothing, you're actually hurting the economy in the long run. You're creating permanently higher prices, even though in the long run you have the exact same output. In other words, there's
okay.
Does that make sense, Cody?
Yes, I see.
Yep.
I just confused the points. I don't know how to explain it better than that. It was just a
this curve is no longer relevant in the long run, right? So really we're just talking about over time, that 18 to 24 months, I moved along the aggregate demand curve from number 2 to number 3. Mm-hmm. So number 2 to 3 represents doing nothing. And it just represents prices increasing to reflect the fact that there's these shortages in the economy. And slowly, as prices go up and up and up, as prices go up, the real GDP falls. And that's that movement. Is that clear, Cody? Although I'm singling you out here, it's probably relevant to everyone in this class. But Cody, is that relevant to you? Do you see that?
I mean, I can just take your word for it. I'm trying to understand it, but I just can't. I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting lost in the graph. From 2 to 3, it's just hard to visualize this graph as prices falling in that direction when analyzing time from left to right. But
so prices aren't falling, they're right. So let's do this. Let me add this here. Let me add this, and this might help you understand it even a little bit better. And again, I'm spending a lot of time on you, but I'm gonna assume it's also others are also getting confused. So at number 2, right? So number 2 is just like this happy event that just happened because the gold fell from the sky, right? Came in this meteor and fell from the sky. Everyone's like rich with gold now, right? They're like paying for their roofs with gold. They're like hiring employees and paying them in gold. People are going to Target and they're paying for things with gold, right? Does everyone kind of have an idea of how great this world looks like right now at number 2?
And and people have money now and can spend.
Exactly. And they're spending so much money that the shelves are all bare because everyone's got all this gold that just like fell into their laps, right? And they're all just buying whatever they can buy. Stupidly, they're just buying whatever they can buy.
And you're using this reference because that represents purchases of all goods across the market.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. So the government, right? Government officials went out there also, and they also, captured all the gold. Investment, businesses went out there. They also got gold. People outside the U.S. also went out there and got this gold. And so everyone is spending all this gold. So they're going to the stores and they're clearing the shelves of everything and anything, which then means now shift your position from consumer to producer. Let's just say you are Costco, and like there's this like mad, let's just say they're not bringing gold. They like turned into gold for dollars, and so like every day when you open up at 10 a.m., there's like a line of like 500 people waiting to get into your store, right? And your shelves are already getting pretty bare. What are you, Cody, going to do to the price?
I'm going
for everything except the hot dog and soda, which has to stay at $1.50. What are you going to do to every other price?
I'm gonna raise prices.
Exactly. And so that's what all those little arrows are. They represent you, Costco, along with all the other stores saying, dude, I don't have enough on my shelves as it is. And I got to pay all my employees more because I can't even get good employees. All my costs are going up and my shelves are bare. I just got to raise prices to accommodate this now shortage that I have at number 2. So Costco is not only doing this, but everyone's doing this. And so the prices keep going up. Now, as the price goes up, then Scheiding, one of the people who captured some of the gold, says, prices are going up quite a bit. I'm not sure if I should spend $1 bajillion for a new roof. I understand the roofers are all busy, but I don't know. How hard can it be? I'm just going to go buy some roof tiles myself, and I'm just going to watch a YouTube video, right? I'm sure someone's made a YouTube video about how to put on a new roof on a house. I'm just going to do it myself. Prices are too high, right? And someone else is going to say, you know what? I've got enough water filtration kits from Costco. I don't really need another one, right? And then even Costco is going to say, do we really need people to ring people up? Like, let's just put all those like self-checkout machines there, right? Because I can't keep hiring all the employees that I'm hiring, right? And so slowly but surely, everyone's going to ratchet up their price, and people are going to stop buying as much as they used to. And that's what's represented in going from 2 to 3. Is that as prices are going higher,
2 to 3 is like a calibration period.
Exactly. 2 to 3 is a calibration period that occurs over an 18 to 24 month period where prices are going to be slowly ratcheting up to reflect the fact that the economy is doing too well, that there's just too much going on. And the reason why it's happening over time is because prices don't adjust immediately, instantaneously. They adjust over time, right? Contracts come due, wage negotiations occur. Even think about your rent, right? Like your rent is guaranteed for a year, right? Until you sign your new lease. But at some point, you are going to sign a new lease, right? So prices just take a while to adjust over time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And what I was saying in the very end was, by doing nothing, I don't want you to think that doing nothing doing nothing is like the lazy person's action. By doing nothing, you're actually hurting the economy. And the reason why you're hurting the economy is that now in the long run, I always end up at Y, because that's just what my country is capable of producing. But the problem is that my prices are now permanently higher. Because I'm now at 3 instead of 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's,
Okay. Does that make sense for everyone in the class? If
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Yes.
If it doesn't, you got two options. You can either watch the video again. You can watch this when I upload this, or you can ask now, or you can even ask later. I'm more than happy. If you emailed me on a Monday, by Tuesday, I will make you your own video that tries to explain it better, or I'll even do an extra Zoom session. I'm more than happy to do it. This week's lecture and the last week's lecture of this class is really kind of what makes this an intermediate class. So I know this is a little bit more. This is probably the most difficult stuff we're doing this semester, but it gives you a really good understanding now for why fluctuations are happening in an economy.
and increases in aggregate demand are, would you say they're more common than decreases in shifts?
No, they're actually, the decreases are actually more common than the increases.
Is that because, well, I mean, I don't know if it's because, but upward
So
shift demand.
the best example I can think of, like realistic example of AD to AD prime, there's really two examples I can think of. The first example being like getting like the internet, right? So in the late 90s, the fact that everything could like go online, you could have online retail, you could have online job recruitment, you could have online education, right? All those things that you only got by going online happened in the late 90s to like 2001, 2002. This is exactly what happened. And the reason why people critique Alan Greenspan is because we got to 2 and he didn't do anything and we ended up at 3. So that's the critique that economists make against Alan Greenspan, is that we went from 1 to 2 to 3. Like as an example, I have from my very first job when I worked at the Federal Reserve, we had like, kind of like retirement accounts that were linked to the interest rate at the time. And the interest rate at the time was like 7% or 8%, some incredibly high number that you wouldn't see anywhere today. And this is just like a regular retirement savings account. Mm-hmm. But it was that high because prices were going up. So
3 is just a natural response to 2. In the case that you do nothing, but
right.
As a government, you want to try to remain at 2.
No. So here's what you want to do. So let me put what you should do, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll look at the opposite situation, which occurs more frequently, which is the AD falling instead of rising. So let's say that you do something, which is what you should do. So let's just redraw this graph very quickly here. Okay, so this probably replicates the graph as good as possible here. Okay, so again, another example, which was on the mainland about 10 years ago, was fracking. So fracking means that you drill for oil like horizontally or upside down, or I don't know exactly what it meant, but it basically meant that regions in the United States that were not known for like drilling for oil, all of a sudden were producing oil. So like South Dakota, North Dakota, were like really big in producing oil. Pennsylvania, which hasn't made oil since like the late 1800s, like just tons of oil fracking. So it was like a new technology that just allowed a lot of more oil to be extracted from the earth. And what it did is it shifted out the AD curve, because now all of a sudden, right, just like people having more money because gold was falling from the ground, now more oil being in the ground and you can drill it out meant that people were being hired as oil frackers, right? Or if you owned like 200 acres of land in North Dakota and you bought it for like a smile and a nickel in like the early 2000s because it was cheap, all of a sudden it's now oil land and you made like all this money, right? And you spent it like a madman. So that was, again, like, by virtue of creating that fracking technology to drill for oil, it shifted the AD curve from AD to AD prime, moving the economy from 1 to 2. Now, again, we could choose to do nothing. So then if we did nothing, I'm not going to draw it on here, but we would go from 2 to 3, right? I'll draw it and then I'll erase it. We would go from 2 to 3, and that would happen over time as prices go up. Is that clear for everyone? I'm going to erase it. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't sound very convincing, but I'll take it. Ah, shit. Okay. Let's do something. What should we do? What would be 2 things we could do? We could reduce we could reduce the money supply, we could reduce government spending, or we could increase taxes. Those are the 3 things we could do. If we reduce the money supply, that would raise the interest rate, which would lower consumption and it would lower investment. Right? Or we could reduce government spending or increase taxes. All of those things would. Now, again, I'm drawing just kind of like right next to the AD curve, but again, think of them as being superimposed on each other, okay? But what it basically does is it allows us to go from 1 to 2 and back to 1. The beauty of this is that you end up at the exact same long run output level, Y star, right? Because if I'd done nothing, I would have been at number 3, which is also Y star. But if you compare 1 to 3, 1 is superior to 3 because 1 has lower prices associated with it. The problem with this, and the reason why quite oftentimes something is not done, is because it really takes a boldness of conviction to pull this off. Like, this is like, I mean, I've never worked at a bar as a bartender. Do any of you work at a bar as a bartender or a server? Hey, Cody, you worked at Starbucks though, right?
Yeah, I did.
What time did you worked at the Waipahu one, right?
Yeah.
What time did that one close at?
We close at 9.
Did you work there at like a net shift?
Yeah, I did sometimes.
So what was pretty bad? Like, were you the guy that locks the doors, or was that someone else's job?
Sure, it could have been me if it really wanted to.
Did you ever lock the doors when like someone was trying to run in and try to buy some coffee?
I don't know. I haven't had that experience.
I mean, but you could imagine someone like so like here's the scenario, right? Imagine someone so happy and that really loves coffee, running there, getting there at 9:01, and you totally just like locked the door, right? Now what you did was a good thing, but it's really hard to like turn away that guy who's like, I really want the coffee, I gotta have the coffee, right? Or it's just like, let's say that you're at a bar and everyone's having a fantastic time, and then last call is at 1 a.m. and you're like, dude, the party's just getting started. Like, why do we gotta like, stop this thing going, right? And so it's really difficult. What I'm saying is that it's really difficult for Cody to lock the door at 9 o'clock and say no more coffee, right? Or if Cody owned a bar at 1 a.m. to say no more drinks, right? Because that's when things are going great, but it's also when you should try to cool things down, right? Because the problem is that if he doesn't, at 4 a.m., right? The guy who he's been serving drinks to all night, punches some other guy, right? And then some other guy like steals the chairs, and some other guy, I don't know, passes out on the floor, right? All the bad things start happening at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., not at 1 a.m. Unfortunately, it just takes a real courage of conviction for Cody to say at 1 a.m., dude, we got to call this party to an end here. Otherwise, things are going to get bad. Or at 9 p.m. say, no more coffee, because that can't be good for anyone to be awake so long anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, those are my choices at 2.
Yeah, exactly. So then if Cody wants to be the cool guy that owns a bar that says there's never last call, we are always open, right? And he just like, goes against state law and just says we never close, we always serve. Well, the problem with that is that, right, we're going to go now from 2 to 3. He's going to look like a really cool guy, but it's going to end up hurting things in the long run.
Okay.
And so the reason why Alan Greenspan, if we look at Alan Greenspan's record, like when I was at the Federal Reserve in 2000, 2001, people would call Alan Greenspan like the great maestro. Like they just thought he was like the most fantastic thing ever. No one ever said a bad thing about him because he kept stimulating. He certainly never like tried to, when we looked like this in 2000, he did not do this. So in the year 2000, he did not reduce the money supply. In fact, he did the opposite. He increased it. And the reason why he increased it, which is exactly the right. I mean, if anything, what Alan Greenspan did in reality is that he actually, like the critique that's generally made against him, is that he supercharged the economy and allowed us to go from 2 to 4 instead of 2 to 3 or even 2 to 1. And the reason why he did that, I don't know if anyone, I guess because all of you are now almost now too young to know about it, but back in the year 2000, there was this big concern that computers weren't going to recognize the year 2000. So like, it was called the Y2K problem. Apparently like a long time ago when they were making computer codes, someone just said, oh, you don't need let's just make the year 2 digits instead of 4 digits. So people would just write 89 instead of 1989. Well, everyone thought that when it went from 1999 to 2000, that the computer would think it was going from 1999 to 1900, like right 00. And it turned out that like the Federal Reserve got really concerned about like ATMs failing and all these things breaking on January 1st of 2000. So they dramatically increased the money supply just to make sure that like, everyone had enough money on hand. But that actually allowed us to go from 2 to 4, which actually made the situation worse, which is why in 2001, the dot-com bubble burst. It wasn't so we had a recession in 2001. It had nothing to do with September 11th. It had to do with the fact that we were at 4, prices started to go up, and we entered a recession in 2001. And that's what that looks like. That is a recession, right? Going from 4 to whatever, or 2 to 3. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, it makes sense for Corey. Does it make sense for everyone else?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting it.
Good. I like that. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to take that as a good thing. Okay, let's do this now. Let's take a break. It's 6:43. Let's take a break for at least 7 minutes. That way you can use the bathroom. I hate it when people call it a bio break. Dude, just use the bathroom. Use the bathroom, get something to eat, do whatever you got to do. 6:50, we're going to resume. And I'm going to look at the opposite situation then, where the AD is less. So kind of like our COVID situation here. And again, doing something as opposed to doing nothing. I'm just going to explain this again just to make that even clearer. I'm ending up a little bit behind schedule, so I'm just going to finish these slides off, and that's going to be the end of our class today. I'll make sure we still do everything, but let's take a break till 6:50. Okay, let's make sure no one else is doing anything. Okay. Let's go back to this. Okay, so now what we were saying here was the situation where something good happens. More often than not, it's a negative thing that happens. So let's just call this a negative shock. COVID is a good example of this, but we have other examples. We don't have to think about it too hard, right? Like the housing crisis, right? If we undermine the financial system, that's a negative shock to the system. Or September 11th, that would be another negative shock in the economy. A war, that would be a negative shock in the economy. Or as we say now, a virus. Again, creates a situation. And the idea is that with a shock, the thing, whatever the thing is, it happens and it happens suddenly, thus shifting the economy inward. And again, I know I'm kind of repeating this, but I think there's a benefit to you seeing it a second time here. Moving us from 1 to 2. And you could do nothing. And if you do nothing, as Cody said, we would have this period of adjustment. And the period of adjustment now is there's not a lot going on. Right? So this would be someone saying back in March, I want to buy something, right? After COVID's just starting to take hold. And you could probably buy stuff pretty cheaply, right? And if you want to hire a worker right now, you can do it pretty cheaply. You can do lots of things pretty cheap right now. And so what I said is that one of the reasons why Alan Greenspan is critiquing the Trump administration, even though he is as Republican as they come, is because he's saying this is when we should not be enduring this 18 to 24 month adjustment period and slowly just let ourselves go to 3 and let the economy fix itself. And now this is a little bit opposite, right? Because if you were to compare situation 3 to 1, 3 would actually be better than 1, right? Because 3 and 1 represent the same level of output, but 3 has lower prices than 1. But this is a situation where economists generally say you do want to get involved. And this is why Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, is so revolutionary in the 1930s. Before John Maynard Keynes, everyone just said you go from 2 to 3 and you just wait for the economy to adjust. So that's like what Herbert Hoover suggested should be done, right? Was the Great Depression started in 1929. Herbert Hoover was not reelected. He lost the election in 1932, and Franklin Roosevelt was elected. Franklin Roosevelt brought on economists who believed in Keynes, as Keynes was starting to take hold in macroeconomics. And John Maynard Keynes said, the worst thing you could do is just do nothing. You actually want to do something. And what you want to do is you want the government to start spending, sorry, not up, down. You want the government to start spending money. And so by the government spending money, right, and that's where we hired people to dig ditches and we just spent a lot of money in lots of things. What you do is you go from 2 to 4 rather quickly by stimulating the economy. And yes, you end up with higher prices, but you avoid all the social costs that go along with an economy that's slowly getting smaller. That from going from 2 to 3. And right now, that is the situation that we now face. Right, in political terms, do we want to go from 2 to 3, or do we want to go from 2 to 4? That's the economic decision we face right now. And again, not being political at this point, what I'm saying is that the Congress, the Trump administration, the soon-to-be Biden administration need to choose now. Do we pick? This is this is a road dividing into two paths here. We have to pick: are we going to go from 2 to 4, or are we going to do 2 to 3? Unfortunately, right now, if I had to make a prediction right now, it's like we're going to go from 2 to 3 until January, and then in February we're going to decide on 2 to 4, which is kind of unfortunate because by that point maybe we'll be right here, and then we'll stimulate the economy, and we'll end up way out here, which means that we'll go from a recession to an overstimulated economy, primarily because we're going to have this period of time going on right here when we should have been doing something, but we're doing nothing. Does that make sense to everyone?
Is that, I feel like that kind of happened with the last stimulus too.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. That is one of the critiques about even back during the Obama administration about the financial crisis, is that a lot of things were done in October of 2008, but then not enough was done, right? So they spent $750 billion, which at the time was a lot of money, but it wasn't enough. So when we got to 2010, 2011, the Obama administration probably would have done more. But remember, that's when the Tea Party came into office, right? And the Tea Party was all about not spending lots of money. So, the Obama administration couldn't get more things through the Congress. And so then nothing was done. And so what it meant is that the economy didn't really fully recover until 2012 or 2013. But that's exactly right. That's exactly what happened in 2010. And right now, the political reason why it's happening is instead of the Tea Party coming into office, now it's that we're changing administrations, and the Trump administration doesn't want to do anything because Biden would get the credit. I mean, presumably, I'm not a politician. I know very little about politics, but I'm suspecting that that Trump doesn't want to do something because Biden will get the credit then for a stronger economy. He'd rather just leave it, do nothing and not fight the fight to get something passed, because then it's kind of Biden's problem then instead. Again, that's my pessimistic view of things, and you can disagree with me about the politics of it, but you can't disagree with me about the economics of this. The same goes for, if you don't believe me, let's just say you don't. Even in the Wall Street Journal today, probably the person who is probably closest to Trump and probably gets the most respect among anyone. Are you okay, Pierce? You okay? You fell. Steve Mnuchin, who's the Treasury Secretary, even he's saying that he's not going to extend all of the ways that the federal government was stimulating the economy, those programs all end in December, and he's not going to extend them. Which means if you have a small business and you need a stimulus payment in January, you're not going to get it from this guy. And it's exactly when we might need it. Not for nothing, but my favorite picture of this guy. You know, he's the executive producer of the Lego movie, which is a great movie. There's this great picture, though, of him and his wife. Look at that. Huh? What do you think of that? What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, he got clowned on Twitter.
Yeah, he looks like a baller, though, doesn't he? Like, look at his wife. His wife's got that, like, I don't know. She looks like a wicked stepsister in a Disney movie, right? I mean, who wears black leather gloves? Anyway, I mean, dude, that's like what, $50? Like, who's gonna think that you're super rich by having $50 in your hand? Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know who's that. Oh, don't tell me that's Elaine Chow. Is that Elaine Chow? I'm really curious if that's Elaine Chow. I hope it's not. I really don't like her. But you shouldn't care what I think. No, it's just some administrator of some kind. Seriously, it's like, what is that? How many across is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and how many down is that? 1, 2, 3. It's like 50. It's seriously like $50. It's, I mean, I'm not saying like I'm super rich or anything, but $50, like, I'm not gonna show off to anyone with $50. Jerry, would you think any more of me if I had $50 in my hand?
No, I don't.
Exactly. So I don't know what the world is that they're in, but okay. So with that all said, that's actually most of these other slides now, just basically, so here's what I'll say for these slides. The rest of these slides basically now explain more formally what I just explained informally. So if you're still confused, you can now follow the slides here and you would see these kinds of changes here discussed. But I do want to just jump ahead here a little bit and say that you don't need to. No, sorry. No, yeah. So the rest of the slides just basically outline more formally what I've already been discussing. Not that I did this all, I don't want you to think that I did this all last week, Thursday, and that you missed this all. I actually didn't cover it in that great of detail, but it inspired me to push a little bit more here. But now this picture here should make sense here, right? So let's just look at this right here, right? So economy was at A, things were great. So what would this have been? A good thing happened or a bad thing happened? What got us from A to B? Good thing or bad thing?
Good thing.
Yep, good thing, exactly.
Oh.
A to B, good thing happened.
I was thinking B to A.
And yeah, exactly. And we see that it's good. We see that it's good because Y2 is greater than Y1, meaning that we're just producing more stuff. We're all richer, we're all happier. But again, what happens when we're all richer and we're all happier and we're spending all that money?
Prices go up.
Exactly, prices go up. And that's what you start to see happening right here. And that's our movement from B to C. And C is... What the hell are you doing? B is not as good as A. And the reason why it's not as good as A is because it represents the same level of overall output, but it represents higher prices. Instead, we should have done something. Right? This is, I liked Cody's term for this, right? This is our adjustment process. The adjustment process of prices rising. And the prices rise not all in one fell swoop, but a little bit over time. It would have been better if the government spent less or if the monetary authorities reduced the money supply. Because what they could have done is they could have shifted AD2 back to AD1, which would have meant we could have gone from B back to A if we had done some sort of contractionary policy. A contractionary policy being things like G going down, T going up, or money supply going down. But again, in situation B, this is like saying last call, right? Now you're that guy, right? Who says last call. Or if you're in B, it's like saying, whoa, the economy's too good, right? Could you imagine any president, not just Trump, but any president saying, things are too good right now, we need to spend less money. Or things are too good right now, we need to raise taxes, right? I mean, just think of how unlikely that sounds. And that's exactly why, even though we say we should go from A to B, B to A, it's why we almost always end up going from A to B and B to C, even though it's not as good to do. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I'm gonna go with it. Okay. Okay. Let's get out of this. If I forget to do this, someone send me a reminder. I'm not always very good about. Let me try to make myself good about this here right now. I'm just going to save this as a PDF so that we all have this as a PDF, and I'm not very good at doing that time. Sorry, just all be patient with me for a little bit. I just want to make sure I save this because I want to send this to the class. My apologies if I look like a guy who's like, I don't know how to work my computer. Let me just make sure that this all has my writing on it. And it does. Good. I'm not going to be able to myself. Anyway, I'll do this later. Never mind. I know what to do now. Okay. Let's see. 709. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to end class actually here. I'm not going to start a topic with this much little time remaining. I'm going to email out the video. I'll email it out to I'll put the PDF and I'll post the video just as I normally do. I'm going to put an announcement in La Lima about the extra credit thing that I talked about. That way everyone knows. I'll give a few reminders next week and a final one on Monday Again, plan though that it's going to take about 7 to 10 hours to do those 4 modules. So don't wait till the very last minute, but you could start it on November the 30th at 8 a.m. and you could get it done that day. I don't want you to think it's going to take that long, but you don't want to be starting it at 10 p.m. on the 30th because you won't get it done in 2 hours. Okay. With that said, we don't have class next week, Thursday. But then on the last Thursday, I'm going to actually talk about topic 10. I'm going to skip 9 and I'm going to talk about 10, which talks about government budget deficits and the debt, which just seems to be a relevant topic that we should talk about. So I'll talk about that on our last class, the Thursday that occurs after Thanksgiving. And we should know by December the 1st whether we have the extra credit in effect or not. Sound good for everyone? Yes. Yes.
Sounds good.
Good. Okay, I'm going to log off last. So if you have any questions or concerns, you should.
Thank you, Professor.
Can't hear you anymore, but thank you, Professor.